London is built on layers and layers of history. The Crystal Palace in Sydenham is one of these interesting stories. The Great Exhibition was really down to three people. The most well-known person, of course, would be Prince Albert himself. The second person was Henry Cole. He said, what a good idea if we put something on a little bit grander to show off our prowess in manufacturing and its association with arts as well. Very luckily, Joseph Paxton designed a gigantic glass house. This was such a big project that in fact Queen Victoria and Albert visited one day, and they drove through this great conservatory in their carriage, right? And she said it was the most wondrous building she'd ever seen in her life. Paxton could envisage a dream that he'd had about turning this wonderful space that he was now presented with into something. The grounds were to rival Versailles. Yeah, so at the end of the Great Exhibition, the building had to be removed from Hyde Park. And although there was a great outcry actually to keep it in Hyde Park, and it was still standing a year later, a man called Leo Schuster was persuaded to sell his estate of about 260 acres in the heights of Sydenham, where the palace was to stand. So we have this wonderful building, as I say, with three transepts now, barrel vaulted nave, and it had a tower at either end of the building. They went up 282 feet high. Now this was to actually accommodate the water features which Paxton has decided to include in the park. And not only water features, but 11,700 fountains. This display of fountain could last anything up to an hour. At the bottom of the park, where the lower lake was, this was turned into what became a geological court. On this particular facet were dinosaurs. When we were actually doing the restoration work to the dinosaurs in 2001, 2002, that my wife spotted something under the surface. And this happens to be one of the fountain jets. It has 15 jets, as you can see, 15 holes for it to come out. So that would be quite a lot of these still to make up 11,700 fountains, wouldn't it? And I just think that this is just one of my favourite items, which I think is just absolutely quite extraordinary. In the 1850s, and this is just slightly before Darwin, paleontology was a major thing because these bones of some of these creatures were being dug up in quarries all over the country. The first phase of the animals, the island that they are on, are sea creatures, and mainly sea creatures. And of course Paxton's wonderful fountain display meant that as the water went through the fountain system, the water went down and the creatures came out of the water. So for a Victorian, it must have looked absolutely amazing. Inside the building was another wonder of the world, because Paxton wanted this to be a place of education. So he built in the north end of the palace a series of historical courts, and so that people could see the world, which they probably wouldn't have an opportunity to go to other than in illustrations. One thing about the Crystal Palace, it was a very, very famous venue for music. They could get 18,000 people in, just into the centre transit. And that's twice the number you can get in the Albert Hall. But this is a very important event to me, because my great-great-grandmother was at that particular festival. I'm very lucky in my family archive. I have a medal of Mrs. Lucas, who was a performer, and it says so on the edge. She was one of the thousands of performers who were there that particular day. As you can see, it has a wonderful interpretation of Handel, and on the back, which is also quite spectacular, has a lyre. So that really gives you some idea about, my personal connection to the Crystal Palace.
Wind is blowing from the west, straight across, and the whole of the centre part's come down. And the 2 points of interest is the South Tower, which is just on my right. I've got the wind coming over my head from the back, blowing away from London. And that, a little while ago, looked pretty hopeful, so they've got the power. under control. There's a fire engine just below me here that they're getting up. They've been moving them all the while for the last few minutes, taking them to the north and the south so as to get going with the power.
The Crystal Palace was destroyed by fire on the 30th of November 1936. The grounds were left in ruins. The Crystal Palace's history of music and sport is strong to this day. It's still a place of wonder and education, and the Crystal Palace Trust raises funds for refurbishment and improvements to the park, including the dinosaurs and the Victorian subway. In this way, the Crystal Palace's ethos and memory still lives on.